Here.
Commissioner Noble.
Here.
Commissioner Quinn.
Here.
Commissioner Sarkeesian.
Present.
Commissioner Swap. Here. Commissioner Waters.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome to the City of Kingman meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. Our first order of the meeting is our approval of minutes, the regular meeting minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission from February 14th of 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 The minutes are approved. Next, we move to the consideration of public comments. Those wishing to address the commission should fill out request forms in advance. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for particular persons or groups. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. The commission may not respond to speakers during the call to public. The commission may direct the staff to study the matter or request that the matter be placed on a future agenda. Do we have any?
We have none.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our new business. First, we have the rezoning case of RZ 23-0002. This is a request from Tom Connor, applicant, and Desert de Oro Foods, property owner, to rezone a property from commercial neighborhood convenience C1 to commercial community business C2. The subject property is located at 2307 Stockton Hill Road and is approximately 1 acre in size. Do we have a report from staff?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission, good evening. Let me see if I can jump over to our Oops. Not sure what's happening here. IT can help me. So I'm not sure if this is being broadcast over Zoom is all. So I want to make sure. There, they've taken control. Okay. As you mentioned, this is rezoning case RZ 23-0002. The request is to change a property's designation on the zoning map from commercial neighborhood convenience C1 to commercial community business C-2. The applicant is Tom Connor and the property owner is Desert de Oro Foods. And the requested action is stated. To get you somewhat familiar with the property location, we're looking at the general plan map here, but the yellow polygon square there shows you the subject property, and it's on Stockton Hill Road and between Davis on the north and Club Avenue on the south. So that's not too far south of the freeway. So sometimes Stockton Hill can seem really long, and so I want to make sure you know where you're at here. The general plan map designates the property, all that pink salmon colored area, that's all designated neighborhood commercial. And then outside of that is the medium density residential areas, 3 to 8 dwelling units per acre. The zoning map is a little bit different. The subject property is zoned C1 currently, and then property to the north is also similarly zoned C1, and then property to the West is R16 and is comprised of mostly single-family homes. Property to the south is Zone C2, which is what the proposal is asking for. And then also directly across the street, across Stockton Hill Road to the east, that property is also Zone C2. So you can see I've pretty much dotted the area with a C something, and so you can see how there's C2 and C1 mixed throughout that area. And of course, within each zone are uses allowed, uses that aren't allowed, and there's some differences. Here's a utilities and street map. Pointed out a lot of the utility lines. Basically, the subject property is has access to the city infrastructure, water, sewer, even storm sewer, and of course, improved roads, both on the north, south, and west sides. Oh, and the site there is with the star, and it's the I forgot the name of the bank. Someone here, sure. What's that? Is it, okay, yeah, the old Bank of America, so that might give you a better idea of where you're at. For the rezoning, the surrounding property owners were notified within 300 feet, and that was done on 2 different dates. And then the site was posted with signs, 2 signs, on 2 different dates there, per the state requirements. And then public notice was placed in the Kingman Minor on 2 dates, and then so far no comments from the public have been received regarding this request. Department and agency comments are no comments, except I guess community development was approved. Here's some site photos. Looking northwest, we can see the building there, existing building, and then Stockton Hills to your right, Club Avenue is to your left there. So you're looking northwest. Looking southwest, you see the existing building, Stockton Hill on your left. Give you an idea of what the parking lot, the improved parking lot looks like. And then this comes into play for the reason they're asking for rezoning. This is looking southwest, and there are drive-through bays on the former bank there. You can see there's 4 of them there. And then also you can see one of our signs that we posted. The dashed line is showing you generally where the property lines are, by the way. Here's looking northeast, and again, those driveway or drive-through bays are pointed out there. And then Stockton Hill straight ahead. And then also of note is at Club Avenue and Stockton Hill Road is a full 4-way signalized intersection. To propose a rezoning, you must first do a citizen review process. And the applicant did do that and followed the city's required process and documented it and provided that to us with their application. And they did conduct 2 on-site neighborhood meetings on February 20th and February 21st. So 2 required meetings, they did that. The applicant mailed notice as required to property owners within 300 feet. The applicant also posted on-site signage, and then 2 neighbors attended those meetings, 1 at each meeting. The summary of the meeting was basically questions from the neighborhood, and that was, I guess I have to jump ahead. The proposal is to have a barbecue restaurant / bar / tavern / drive-through component to it all. So with that, the questions may make more sense. One of the neighbors asked, what are the proposed hours of operation? The response from the applicant to the neighbor was, hours of operation are being considered from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. kitchen and drive-through service. The bar may serve only slightly longer. Question number 2 from the neighbors was, will smokers be located? And that is cooking smokers, not actual people that smoke. The response was, smokers will be inside the kitchen, not outdoors, and filters will be used for exhaust. Question number 3 from the neighborhood was, will the existing drive entries on Davis and Club Avenue remain? And the applicant responded with yes, all the existing access points are proposed to remain, no new ones, and none being eliminated. This is their concept plan, which generally follows the existing layout. The only difference really is they're showing the blue arrow there where the proposed trash dumpster which sort of saddles onto another property. They're going to remove that and put it actually on their property to take care of that as a potential issue. And you can see on the north, they have one access there, driveway access, and then on the south, you can see there's actually 3 access points that exist. So the purpose of the request, again, was to go from C1 to C2. The designation of C2 would allow the applicant, well, according to them, they stated they would like the new C2 zoning to, quote, renovate the existing building for use as Dickey's Barbecue Pit Restaurant. The use would have drive-through service as well as bar tavern inside the restaurant. The C2 zone, unlike this is outside of quotes now. The C2 zone, unlike the C1 zone, allows for the land uses drive-through retail restaurant, drive-through service, and bars and taverns. So the important thing here is the C1 zone does not allow for drive-through restaurants. It allows, it did have the grandfathered bank, which is a service, not a restaurant. So that's kind of where the applicant saw a nice site that had a drive-through service in it, but it wasn't the right zone for a drive-through restaurant. So that's one of the main reasons they're here. And then also the C2 would allow bars and taverns. The analysis that staff had to perform on the application is in accordance with our standards in the zoning code. And the commission would make a recommendation of approval, denial, or approval with conditions to the council. So in accordance with that, an amendment to the zoning map may only be approved if the following findings are made. And the one finding is that the proposed amendment is consistent with and conforms to the goals of the general plan and any applicable specific plans. In short, the subject property is designated as neighborhood commercial, the NC designation on the general plan 2030, and neighborhood commercial designation supports the requested C1, well, the existing C1 as well as the C2 zoning. So the designation on the land use map supports both types of zoning designations, but the context is what I think the planning commission and staff and council look for, and the neighborhood does as well, to see if it's appropriate for that particular area. The proposed amendment will not be detrimental to the public interest, health, convenience, or welfare of the city and will add to the public good as described in the general plan. The proposed C2 zoning is consistent, as I mentioned, with the neighborhood commercial designation of the general plan. The zone change will allow for the adaptive reuse of an existing bank as a restaurant with a bar. Reuse of existing buildings should always be encouraged. It utilizes the existing infrastructure, such as water, sewer, and streets. Reuse also prevents buildings from being abandoned and neglected, becoming a blight on the neighborhood. Reuse also lessens the impact on natural resources that new construction may have. Because the area has sidewalks and a street network, the citizens in the vicinity have several transportation options such as vehicle, bicycle, and walking. The affected site, the next criterion that must be met is the affected site is physically suitable. So in terms of design, location, shape, size, operating characteristics, and provision of public and emergency vehicles, access, public services and utilities, protection, police protection, potable water, schools, solid waste collection and disposal, stormwater, storm drainage, wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal, to ensure that the requested zone designation and the proposed or anticipated uses of the development will not endanger, jeopardize, or otherwise constitute a hazard to the property or improvements in the vicinity in which the property is located. To summarize the findings that staff had made, the site is physically suitable for continued commercial use. The site is relatively flat and has access to an improved street system. The site has access to city water and sewer infrastructure, and any site development, such as the relocation of a trash dumpster or anything like that, will be reviewed against relevant adopted city codes and standards. Based on the submitted application and submitted public input, the staff analysis was able to find that the proposed amendment to the zoning map complies with the required criteria of the Kingman's zoning code. And therefore, planning staff recommends that the planning commission recommend to the city council approval of the request to change the zoning of the subject property from commercial neighborhood convenience C1 to commercial community business C2. And with that, stand for questions.
Thank you. Does any commissioners have further questions for Gary?
I might mention that there was no conditions proposed either. It was just
Yes,
staff
I do.
recommended.
Can you pull up that site map, please?
Yes. This concept
No,
map?
the other one that shows the driveways. The one on Club, there's 3 entrances, right?
Yes.
Well, I have an issue with the first one, right, the closest one to Stockton Hill. I mean, it's less than 50 feet from Stockton Hill, and you make that turn right there in Club, you got the title company right across the street, and they're making that turn. I'd like to see that one eliminated, because we've had this problem, Golden Corral, Cracker Barrel, their one was not supposed to be there to start with. They ended up getting it. But there's a headache there, and I don't want to see any more headaches with traffic, because that 3 driveways there is fine, but they need to eliminate that closest one to Stockton Hill. That's my opinion.
The one like right here.
Yes.
I would say that would, just from a off the cuff, that would sort of confuse the circulation on site potentially,
You got the
because then
driveways
you'd,
coming in from the other side, on Davis' side, and you got, because I've seen on the other 2, I don't know why they had 3 there to start with, because you got 2 right there on Club that go right into the banking and everything, drive around it.
Does anyone else have questions for staff?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have one question, Gary.
yes.
Presently, the street light at Club and Stockton Hill, is that set up on a timer, or is that go by traffic count, or how does?
Actuation.
I actually do not know the answer to that. I did not anticipate that being a question. It's a good one, but I do not have that, and I don't think the city engineer's on our Zoom.
Actuator, because we got timers on there too.
So I don't know the answer to that.
All right.
It potentially you can continue this to get that answer, or whatever you choose, but I don't have the answer at this point.
Madam Chair, if I may, I am aware of that. So that particular light is, it has 2 different methods depending upon which one's met. So it is on a timer, as well as there are sensors in the ground for instance, if a vehicle's coming on Club up to the light, that will
Start the timer.
yeah, it's supposed to indicate to the light in the system, hey, there's a car here, we need to change and we need to let this vehicle go. So,
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Gary, I have a question. When you're evaluating this, do you evaluate the traffic impact from all of the entrances and exits?
Well, when a proposal is submitted, we circulate it amongst staff, including the city engineer, and they didn't provide any comments as far as concerned about it. We don't necessarily do, unless it's a change of use and an expansion of some kind that triggers a traffic study, that's when we would do that. But on this one, the access points are existing, and the use is, well, not very similar. Bank and a restaurant are very different, but that apparently did not warrant further investigation by the city engineer.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Do you want me to leave it on a particular slide?
That one's fine.
Okay, now I don't know if the applicant is here.
Yeah.
Hi.
Perfect. Yep, absolutely. Jason Graham, project manager, representing the property owner. Yes, I'm here in attendance, so if any questions I can help with. You know, the one thing about the traffic light, if I can have any comments to that, is that it is a safe access for what I see in the industry of QSRs, not that Dickey's Barbecue is falling under that QSR background. It does help with the stacking of drive-through cars within a drive-through service. And then this location's also will be set up with a bellhop, so it'll be not actually a drive-through window until our engineers can come up with a way to get the mashed potatoes and barbecue through those tubes, those vacuum tubes to deliver to cars. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to still keep that in person, so, you know, we are utilizing most of those bays, but understand the concern with the comment, but, yeah, so. Any questions specifically? I can.
Madam Chair? I've got a question for you. Did you say there were going to be filters on the barbecue pit area?
Yeah, so the barbecue smokers are internal. They are wood-fired, but they have a carbon filter on the exit of the exhaust to collect the odors from the exhaust of the wood fire burners, so.
How many hours a day do you anticipate that barbecuer?
So between the prep and operating hours, looking between a 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kind of operating range. So I would say that we're looking at probably at least a 12-hour cycle from prep to shutdown.
And these filters that will be in place at other Dickey's locations, have they shown to mitigate the smoke and aroma, let's say, from?
Yeah, to what extent of eliminating the odor, I do not have that information. I can get the product information sheets. I know that they have to be serviced and maintained, so, but I don't know what, you know, ppm values of, we're talking of reduction or anything like that. I don't have that information.
One final question. What percentage of the business do you anticipate being a drive-through percentage?
I don't know enough of the operation split between dine-in or drive-through for a Dickey's specifically. I can get that information through some of our locations in the Phoenix metro area, but I would hate to provide a number if I don't have that accuracy. So,
Okay.
for the most part, it is a sit-down restaurant kind of atmosphere. But you know, for those that are on the go to go home, I could see how the need for the drive-through is going to be a convenience, especially in our day and age. So,
Right. Okay. Thank you.
yeah, I
Do you
could.
have, do you have any problem with that first driveway, removing that first driveway on Club?
You know,
Because that's awful close right there.
I know, and so for me, as I look at these, as I manage these projects, any access or signage limitations for me is kind of a hit to the project from you know, for it to be successful. So, you know, I always try to help to mitigate those through TIA's traffic impact analysis or anything like that, if that is needed. But, you know, again, I don't want to give too much of my comments of what I believe, but, you know, it's.
You have 4 other entrances.
Right, it's just the difference from a signal entrance versus a non-signal will detour
Well,
people.
you've still got the 2 entrances over there on the signal side on Club.
Right,
It'd be more advantageous than, because I can see people turning in there and trying, the reason I can say that is I drive the hospital bus and I travel at Club Street.
right,
And people turning in that bank or coming out of the Pioneer, right across the street.
right.
You know, it gets a little tight right there. And if you have a restaurant in there, you know, the traffic's even gonna be worse. And we've had airway in Stockton Hill because of the restaurants there.
Right, I see the point. I guess without doing an analysis on kind of what the impact would be. I know definitely coming out of the Pioneer Title parking lot, it's less of an approach and visibility, but coming out of a little bit more open area of a more curb cut entrance and exit, to me seems a little bit more convenient and safer, but that's just my opinion.
It looks like those other two are more of an exit, right?
Correct.
That are in
The
club, right? Because that's where the
One's a
drive-through,
bypass,
the
yeah.
flow of the drive-through is going to go that way, right?
Yeah, and we want to maintain the furthest west as a bypass for those that are going on that side of the building, west side of the building to exit without having to go through drive-through. So,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand something. Which way did you say the drive-through was going to flow? Was it going to flow out toward Club or out?
out will be towards club, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I know that this incorporates like a bar ability to drink. Will you have any music kind of playing outside of the structure?
No.
Oh, okay. You don't
No,
have any
there is a
plans?
patio area proposed in the design plans right now. In the front entrance, small, I think it's a 10 spot. But no, typically any music's internal, so,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, noise ordinance, things like that. So we want to make sure not to, disrupt the neighborhood, so.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just want to remind the committee that we are here specifically for the zoning change. So as far as the traffic analysis and things, that will come later on in the process. It is of concern, absolutely, but we do have items established in our code that does address traffic issues and things like that. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that we are here specifically for the zoning change on the property, and that's where we're at.
Great, thank you, Sean. All right, let me open this up to public comment. Did we receive any public comment? Nope. Okay, then anyone wishing to talk can approach the podium.
My name is Wes Maroney, and I would recommend that you approve this change. We've got enough dollar stores in town. We have enough Mexican restaurants in town. We need to have a venue where people can go and get other types of food. It will employ people. Right now, it's not doing anything, not making any tax dollars or anything for any of us. If any of you have ever been to a Dickey's, they are big in Texas. All right? They're a clean operation. They don't have problems. They don't look for problems. And I, for one, will go there a whole lot of times. And I'm sure that the little things about driveways and stuff like that will be worked out. And I think it's a good deal for the city.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a comment? I see none. I'm going to close public comment and open it up to commission discussion.
I think we've already answered all our discussions.
We
I
discussed
I
enough
concur
to
with,
make a motion.
just go ahead with the zoning change.
All right, go
just
ahead.
so
Do you have a motion to make for us?
I'll make a motion to concur with the zoning change
Okay.
from C1 to C2.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All right, can we get a roll call vote?
Chair Goss,
Approve.
Vice Chair Blair,
Approve.
Commissioner Noble. Yes. Commissioner Quinn,
Yes.
Commissioner Sarkeesian,
Approve.
Commissioner Swap,
Yes.
Commissioner Waters.
Approve.
Unanimous, motion approved.
Thank you. All right, next we're going to move to CPU case CPU 23-0001. This is a request from Dave Ferriette, applicant and Kingman Storage Partner, LLC, property owner, to amend a recently approved conditional use permit, CUP, to allow fully enclosed RV and boat mini storage, warehousing on property zoned commercial service business C3. The amendment requested is to eliminate a condition of approval for CUP 22-0008 that restricted non-office hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. all days of the week. Do we have a report?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission, good evening again. This is as was mentioned, a conditional use permit application CUP 23-0001. It's for an enclosed RV and boat mini storage warehousing, and essentially it's an amendment to, as was mentioned, previously approved conditional use permit 22-0008, and that's at 3645 East Andy Devine. The applicant is David Ferret, and the property owner is Commercial RE Investments LLC. This request is to amend, and hopefully I can explain this correctly or adequately. A person or applicant can request to amend a previously approved conditional use permit, which is what they've done. The best process that I found that we could handle that was to essentially re-adopt a conditional use permit at this time. So that way all the conditions are there, it's recorded as such, if it's approved. So if tonight's action, you were to approve the requested amendment, you're essentially approving a new conditional use permit. But I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because it's all the same analysis that we did last year on the previous one. But you would be approving the amendment, which would be, and I'll get into this, removing the hours of operation restriction from the previously approved CUP. But with that, this would be a brand new CUP. So some of this will be familiar to you. The subject property is over on Andy Devine. It's outlined in red there, and I mentioned the address was 3645. It's vacant right now. However, some of the lot does share a parking lot, or has a parking lot easement with the Dollar General there on the north side. Again, the subject site. Important to note here is, for the amendment, is the single-family residential area. They're zoned all commercial, so we'll get to that. But on the left or the west of the property as single-family homes, and then further south is a manufactured home park. And then surrounding it are other more commercial and industrial related land uses, including the state MVD offices across Andy Devine. Just general site, we've gone over this before. Site photos. This is essentially from Andy Devine looking west or northwest. It was really hard to get my arrows right because Andy Devine, it's really difficult when you're trying to draw maps and give you the right directions. But this is generally looking northwest. There's our public notification sign. Dash line is the property boundary. There's the property boundary again, the Dollar General on the north, but you're looking northeast. And the subject property is all that area. And you can see the improvements, the large or wide sidewalks that are on Andy Devine and the street. Here's the posted notice sign. That's the remnants of the public neighborhood sign that is now falling apart that the applicant did. This is looking southwest. And here's from the subject property looking southeast. So you can see the MVD there. Andy Devine and the wide sidewalk. Okay, so here is looking northwest, and those are the abutting residential structures. There's two single-family homes. One of them you can't see the roof of very well, and the subject property in the foreground here. Looking west-southwest, continuing to the left of this picture, you'll see more. That's the manufactured home park. There's some abutting residences there as well, subject property in the foreground here. The conditional use permit process is similar to the rezoning that we went over, how they have to do a neighborhood meeting. They did so on February 17th and 18th. The meetings were held at the Kingman branch library. They did notify property owners within 300 feet of the site, and they reported that there were no attendees at either meeting. And then for this meeting, this public hearing, staff notified property owners within 300 feet on April 20th. The site, we posted on the site April 20th, and then public notice was placed in the Kingman Miner on the 23rd. No comments from the public have been received thus far. Department and agency comments, these are from the last conditional use permit, so I'm not going to go over those again because those are already embedded in the conditions of approval that you approved a year ago, and staff definitely felt were adequate this time around as well. The conceptual site plan, again, we went over this before. Nothing has changed. Their plans are being currently reviewed. They chose to go the site plan route, and then if that gets approved, when it gets approved, they'll apply for a building permit. Here's the conceptual site plan. There's Andy Devine on the south, or on the bottom of the page. The analysis, we won't go into this a lot, but one of the required findings for the Planning Commission, and also keep in mind too, the Planning Commission is the final say on this matter. It doesn't go to the council unless it's appealed. The findings that the commission would need to make are as listed, and one of those, I'll jump to number 2, is the granting of the conditional use permit will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. This includes property damage, nuisances, hazards, or traffic impacts that could be created. First, to keep in mind, a conditional use permit, just as a note, is a use that's generally allowed in a zone, but it's been deemed to have operational characteristics, usually not very specified, but it's a type of operation that warrants further consideration and possible reasonable conditions applied to it. So with that, these conditional uses are to be scrutinized a little more. So on number 2 criterion there, as was noted in the first staff report last year and continues in this staff report, we noted that no apparent nuisances or hazards are likely to be generated by this fairly low impact and quiet use. However, consideration should be given to limiting hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. to reduce any impact on adjoining single-family homes and the manufactured home park. Staff had recommended this condition on several other mini storage warehouses, and they were successfully adopted and included in those conditional use permits. Same here, this was adopted into this conditional use permit last year, but the applicant is now seeking to remove that condition. That's the only condition they're asking to remove. Again, this is a operation that staff would look at as unique. That's why it falls under the conditional use permit. Some unique operational characteristics could be that with 24-hour access, you have people accessing the site at all hours of the day, 1, 2 in the morning potentially. If there's nuisances being made, who do you report that to? You call the cops. These kind of uses are just trying to nip that in the bud. So that's why staff had recommended 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. For non-office related uses. So they could go do paperwork. They could use their office as much as they want. It's just we're saying that the access would be limited for people that rent or lease those storage units, limited from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. to reduce the potential impacts on adjacent residential uses. With that, the continued analysis remains as is. Building elevations. The top is generally what you'd see from Andy Devine. Their current plans are a little different than that, so. So planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit, again, in whole, to allow the fully enclosed RV and boat mini storage warehousing at 3645 East Andy Devine Avenue by affirming the findings that are made as stated in section 240.040E in the zoning code, and attach the following conditions. These conditions are exactly the same as they were last year, except that I moved number 12 to the end. It's the access to the site and operational hours, not including office use, shall be limited to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. all days of the week. That condition was moved to the end, just so it's easier for you to spot. The wording is exactly the same as it was last year. So staff still recommends the same conditions. limiting the hours of operation. However, obviously, to recognize the request of the applicant, staff has provided motion option number 2 for you. There's a multitude of options for you, but this option number 2 is that the commission may make the same, not recommendation, ruling, but exclude the proposed condition number 12, and that would satisfy the applicant's request regarding the operational hour restrictions. So with that, stand for questions. Hopefully I explained everything okay.
Thank you, Gary. Do we have any idea why they want to be able to go in all hours of the day and night?
Probably just to cater to the client potential needs, and maybe it was an oversight the first time around. They didn't notice it in the conditions the first time around. I can't really say for sure what they're thinking, and I'm not sure if they're here or on Zoom with us.
Okay, thank you.
They want to change their hours from 6 a.m. to 10?
No, the existing conditional use permit restricts their access to the site for people getting into their storage units. They can only get into those between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m.
Okay.
They want to remove that and make it 24/7.
24?
24/7, yeah. That's the nature of the request, is to remove the restriction.
So we've done quite a few of these CUPs for storage facilities over the years, and it's always been a staff recommendation for 6 to 10 p.m., correct?
Yeah, since the new code's been adopted, which after that we had quite a few come in.
Does it seem that, like, who would be responsible for monitoring if the office were open all hours, whether or not other things on the property were being accessed? Like, how would that be managed and monitored?
This condition of approval on a conditional use permit would be similar to just a law being passed. They may or may not be aware of it at the time. They may, whatever happens, they might get, if there becomes a problem, then they would be notified. This would be another tool to say, hey, it's a nuisance. You do have restrictions 6 to 10. It's like a law. Sometimes you don't know about it until you're reminded. So if someone were operating it and they were letting people in, they would be violating the conditional use permit, which is a problem. But it would be usually a complaint-driven issue. And then if they didn't correct the problem, then they would be eligible, or I don't know if that's the right word, but potentially be considered before this body to revoke a conditional use permit.
Thank you.
But if you leave it in there already, then you won't have a potential problem.
Well, again, it's just like a law. If the law is there but no one's observing it, someone's got to find out they're not observing it. Usually it's a complaint or an officer.
If you leave it at 6 to 10, it's there. So if now there's a problem, then you won't have to worry about a complaint because they're already in non-compliance.
Correct.
So it's still staff recommendation to leave it from 6 to 10?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions for Gary? Okay, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open it up to public comment. If anybody has any comments to make, please approach the podium.
Madam Chair, before this happens, I'm going to give another reminder to ensure that we're talking to our microphone. I'm getting word that we're not getting picked up, so.
Go ahead.
Hi, Wes Maroney again. I like the idea. There's 92 spots, and that means that there are 92 less travel trailers and whatever, campers and stuff throughout the town that make our town look a little different, you know, so we can get them off. Over the years, I was here when we spoke about Source, it used to be Citizens Electric, on their power station, putting up a block wall. And then when you guys discussed about the truck stop, the pilot, or Loves, or whatever you want to call it, on Andy Devine, to put a fence up between the truck stop and the parking lot for the old Kmart, where the Cal Western is now. And I would suggest that maybe you talk to them about a nice block wall or something in the back where the neighbors are so that the lights and sounds are deadened and wouldn't interfere with those folks over there. They could just have a nice backyard and not have to worry about viewers coming into their place. Or if we can't do that, then a 8-foot fence with slats in it that would help cut down noise and sighting and lighting. Just a thought.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Do we have any more comments? Please approach the podium.
Hello, I'm Rob Sampson with Selbert Associates. I'm here on behalf of David Ferretti. I'm not sure if you guys skipped a step in the process, but we're here to answer any of your questions that you guys have. To answer your question about why do we want to be open 24/7, and I know that I've got my work cut out for me. I'm kind of reading the room here, so we'll try and do this briefly. But this developer has a number of projects in the Southwest and the West. The model that they use is a sale model. Everything is it's condominium units. So you have an ownership aspect of it. People who have ownership in it tend to protect their investment. So if someone's not abiding by the rules, they make sure that they do. There's an HOA that monitors vehicle traffic in and out. If someone is abusing the privilege and coming in at all hours of the night, making a nuisance or having any issues, they're the first ones to deal with it, and they'll be the ones that monitor it. And if police need to be called, they'll be happy to do so. But their model is very is proven. It's an ownership model. It'd be like if you wanted to have access to your garage. I know it's on your property, but again, this is something that someone owns. It's not necessarily a business. So to answer the question, there isn't an office that's going to be there on a full-time basis. Once you buy, everything's done by an app. You can monitor your investment by cameras. You have access to every camera that's in the building or in the development. All of the lights, to answer the gentleman's question, are all directed towards the inside of the development. The buildings are placed so that any noise that would be minimized and baffled by the buildings themselves. The reason the owner's looking to do this is just it's their model that they've done everywhere. It's just an amenity. In Reno, they sent me over the traffic study. There's one trip on average every week that goes in between the hours of 1 and 6 a.m. So they have historical data that shows it's just a selling point. If you were to say no today, it's not the end of the world, but it's something that we feel pretty strongly about, and other jurisdictions have seen it fit to allow it to happen. Given this is in a commercial area, and there is some residential, as Gary pointed out so admirably, but it is something that we feel isn't a detriment, or we wouldn't propose to bring it to the city of Kingman.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant's representative?
I have a question or two. The
Sure.
property in Reno, how many, I'm assuming it's the same.
No, it's 3 times the size of this one. Sorry, I left that out.
Okay.
Yep.
And there's one visit between 1 to 6 approximately.
Yep, correct.
A week.
A week, yeah. Most people are creatures of comfort. They do their same routine, and these are owned by people who don't necessarily live in the area. And if you've ever owned boat storage or monitored it, you realize that boat and RV storage is different than self-storage and mini storage. It's not something you access all the time. It's long weekends and certain times of the week if you're taking a vacation. This is really just something that people buy, and they lock it up, forget it, and then they go use it when they need to. So being based out of Lake Havasu, we're kind of boat storage, Arizona. If you ever want to come look, you'll be able to take a peek. Everything that you'll see there is they're empty. There's just no one's in these facilities. They don't spend a lot of time there unless it's geared towards that, and this is not one of those type.
Did you say that there won't be an office?
There will not, no.
So that is obsolete, that the
Correct.
office can be open 24/7?
Yeah, and the offices, there is not an office because, again, once you buy it, you own it. It's just like having it attached to your house in a remote location.
Okay. And once they own it, they won't be renting it out, I'm assuming? It will...
Correct. The CC&Rs have provisions that prohibit them from subleasing or doing any additional business. There's no business allowed in it, so like a painting company can't buy this and run a business out of it. This is mainly for your boat, your RV, side-by-sides, like toys.
Okay,
So, and it is monitored. It's something that they do monitor quite closely. Like if someone tries to pull the old bait and switch and comes in with a, hey, I'm just storing my trailer here, and all of a sudden it's got a bunch of painting supplies or a bunch of HVAC equipment or whatever, they're in violation. They're given a reprimand, and if they can't, correct the issue or aren't willing to, then they're asked to sell the unit.
okay.
So like I said, this, I hate to sound like an elitist, that's not really why I'm here, but I'll be honest with you, if you're spending the kind of money that they command for these units, you have enough money to know what you should be doing right and wrong. That sounds terrible. I don't mean to sound it that way. I'm just saying that this is an investment, is really what it is.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any more people who want to address the commission? No? Okay. I close public comment and open it up for commission discussion.
It sounds like I was there when we approved like 9 of these things in a row, and we got all of them to agree on these hours. The issue I have with changing it is that we're kind of undermining the precedent we've set with the other ones. Suddenly there's a lot of arguments for changing their hours too. I understand this gentleman has some technology which makes this somewhat feasible, but the other people that might be approaching us might not have that technology, but still point back to the fact that we're allowing this particular unit to change their hours. So that's
Open a can of worms.
basically, yeah.
I don't have a whole lot to say about it one way or the other. I feel like using the gentleman's words, if you have enough money to buy the unit, you probably also have enough money to plan ahead and follow the rules. So you could get your boat out during the particular time limits that have been allotted. If we don't have any other further discussion, we can make a motion.
I understand why it would be a selling point. It just gives more flexibility. People who are spending that kind of money love to have flexibility. So I can see why that's appealing, and I also understand the concern about setting a precedent. That I understand both of those.
I guess the only other thing to consider is that if these are actually owned units instead of storage units, we could make that the justification for a change of decision if we were to try to deter precedent.
It's a toss-up, really. I mean, it's just the way the verbiage is. I still have a tough time. I'd like to keep it 6 to 10. Understand where he's coming from and the realization. I know when I have my boat, 6 o'clock, I'm already on the lake. So, you can change the hours maybe, but I don't think 24/7 would be ideal.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to keep, what is this, 23-0001 as is, including item 12 with hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? I see none. All right, I guess I'll get a roll call vote.
Chair Goss,
Approve.
Vice Chair Blair,
Approve.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes?
Commissioner Quinn,
Yes.
Commissioner Sarkeesian,
Approved.
Commissioner Swap,
Approve.
Commissioner Waters.
Approve.
Unanimous, motion approved.
Okay, thank you. The last item of business is announcement by commission members. This is limited to announcements, availability, or attendance at conferences and seminars, requests for agenda items for future meetings, and requests for reports from staff. No discussion on any of these items. Does anyone have anything to bring up? I see none. All right, thank you everyone for attending the meeting. We are adjourned.